I'm aware that not even a month ago I said that it's cheap to bring up archival footage to attack someone, but I never said I was above it. If you're sleeping in a park, I'm going to kick sand in your face, particularly if you happen to be Waleed Aly. I cannot believe I missed this story, but it's such a perfect reminder that if I had the choice of ending world hunger or axing the project, Africa's just going to have to take one for the team. They can cannibalize the presenters on the project if they like, but I ask you, what is more of a crime? This, or the fact that there's an entire news show aimed at spinsters who work in HR? Just my bi-weekly reminder to you that labels are completely meaningless, as what does everyone label the project? Left wing. Okay, let's see what that's supposed to mean this time.
A new report today has revealed that unions are costing our state governments billions of dollars, money that could be spent on much-needed hospitals, police stations and public transport.
Whoa, dumping on the unions within the first sentence. Good innings, comrades. Hope it's not too chilly further down that left wing. Didn't know that meant attacking the right to organise? Noted. I guess that also means presenting a report from perhaps the most extremist organisation in Australia, the IPA, as just another report. Okay, how about I get a report commissioned by Blair Cottrell from the United Patriots Front that says Muslims are overpaid in Australia? Would you be cool with airing that, Waleed? It's less extreme. The IPA is a think tank funded by Monsanto, cigarette companies, gas, oil, corrupt agribusiness, pretty much everyone that's evil. This is their council of doom. The United Patriots Front, by contrast, is essentially 12 dudes that do an amount of roids that'd make even Ziz say, "Bruz, you have to stop. There's more to life than aesthetics." Which one do you think's doing more damage? The one that essentially does high school anniversaries for the Cronulla riots? Or the gumbo made out of oil, cigarettes and pesticides? Because according to Waleed, eat up Australia, this man makes a living off of moralising. Also, we're not going to ask the construction union we're attacking for a right of reply. And journalism.
Tradies are fast becoming some of the highest paid employees in the workforce. But it's not due to a skill shortage, the resources boom or an explosion in construction.
Those behind-the-news graphics coupled in with that, "Hey, I've got a really bouncy voice even though I'm talking to 40-year-olds. Can you imagine being in their demographic, sitting through that night after night and thinking, yes, there's nothing patronising about this. Funny they didn't turn that scary T1000 technology on themselves, because these glorified kids news hosts who sound bored by their own antics are taking issues with construction workers who have some of the most dangerous jobs in the country, made even more dangerous by the Liberals strengthening anti-union legislation which caused deaths to skyrocket, but don't remember this left-wing news outlet doing a single story on that. But I could be wrong. Maybe Peter Hellier's doing a 4-year-long in-depth investigation into it between performances of his live show, Big Boy Pants. These hosts get paid 5 to 10 times what they're complaining about when their job is to sit on their ass, read off a teleprompter, and pretend they like Lisa Wilkinson. Yes, those tasks are in ascending order of difficulty.
We're seeing overly generous wage deals with unions like the CFMEU.
Yuck. He looks like an ugly, fatter version of me if I had an anus for a mouth. I am the caterpillar, he is the butterfly.
And that's driving up the cost for construction on major infrastructure projects and costing us all money.
Ah yes, spoken like Suburb with a true, quote from his bio, interest in personal and economic freedom. This sweat potato who takes Braveheart's speech a little too seriously, willing to risk his own life to risk corona restrictions that rob men of the right to sit down when they order a coffee. Surely death is better than that. Bravely waging war on the true scourge of this continent, minimum wage, denying employers the freedom to impoverish their workers. You might not like that freedom, but freedom the principle must be protected at all costs. Unless that freedom is imposed on workers when they want to come together and bargain their worth in the marketplace, which is exactly what a free market would allow you to do. Nay! Even Geltron the freedom molester has his limits. And the reason he's called Geltron is, look at this man's hair. Gel is the universal indicator of a fuckwit. That handful of gob that makes this sound when you put it through your hair. I implore you, watch the video. The entire argument boils down to, why do we have to pay builders? Just force Triple M to play 10% more Foo Fighters. They'll be happy. Which, first off, the fact that builders are overpaid, even from a macroeconomic perspective, mad. Publicly funded infrastructure was basically the only thing keeping our economy from falling into an official recession. Why? In part because they're essentially mini drip-fed stimulus packages in the form of construction workers spending their fat checks on crap hot chips, oak, and jet skis. Hell yeah, I've used mine more than twice, bruz. Return on investment with a dividend in vroom. But no! Avoiding a recession is not a valuable use of taxpayer money. What is, though, is using those exact same tax dollars to pay foreign tobacco companies compensation. Tim Wilson, let's hear that sound one more time. Do I even need to tell you he was a former policy director of the IPA? Just in case you're a dum-dum, he was. He's now a Liberal MP for his upstanding service to the public of advocating that the Australian government pay $3 billion to foreign tobacco companies, which, cue a beautiful mind graphic, then stop it immediately because you don't need it for an equation this simple. What freedom is being exercised by forcing taxpayers to compensate tobacco companies that kill taxpayers, Gideon? The freedom to be a complete nutter c***. Guess you're an expert in that. You exercise it with every waking moment and probably while you're sleeping, as I imagine you dream of catapulting quadriplegics into quicksand. I thought they'd flail around a bit more. This is just boring.
It claims that money alone could build 225 new primary schools, 105 new secondary schools, 5 new hospitals, 125 new suburban trains, or 200 new 24-hour police stations.
You're going to pretend you care about public schools, hospitals and transport after your organisation wrote this about public schools, this about public hospitals, and this about public transport. If your About page was even half honest, it would read, "Our mission is to almost exclusively attack public schools, public hospitals and public transport, except when there's a chance to say workers are getting paid too much, at which point we'll go so pro-state we'll make the same arguments the Soviet Union did, that workers should feel privileged to serve the government with or without compensation." I can't believe mole rats like Gary Awesome who say stuff like, "The project, you're a bunch of commies," was right. Guess he showed me, with age does come wisdom.
Australians, as it stands, currently pay at least 30% more for the costs of our schools, hospitals and roads than we should be.
Oh yeah, look at this chill surfy who could be a handyman host on Better Homes and Gardens, but somehow works for a think tank set up by Peter Costello exclusively to rescind all workers' rights. Good to see they're getting the full spectrum of ideas on this left-wing pinko news show where they show two Liberal Party think tanks in a segment where they talk about the cost of infrastructure, and surprise, surprise, just so happen to find that all the blowout costs are directly due to the Liberal Party's biggest enemies. Who'd have thought? No need to give a right of reply to said enemies because this report speaks for itself. And the reason I put report in inverted commas is it's 8 pages long. Half of those pages actually have info on them, but they're so spaced it would make R.L. Stein think, that font's a little big. Even with this whopping 4 pages of large font, a lot of it just being lists of how much workers earn. The people at the project are so dumb, they couldn't even read that, as almost all the stats they use had pictures next to them. How scary is it knowing that the information that your mum is being fed night after night is by people that are dumber than you when you were 8 years old? 2 pages of this report, that's a quarter of it, is the same picture twice. Just when you thought it couldn't get any lazier, another page is bragging about the fact it's blank. Wish I had that kind of confidence. If I did, the next 2 minutes of this video would be... One of them isn't about the author, which, Gideon, I need to stress this. No one cares about you. I wish they did, so when you walk down the street you got spat on, but no one read that about the author, not even me, and I'm looking for reasons to shit on you. In short, this is a report fashioned by slimy idiots, read out by slimy idiots who claim...
A new report today has revealed that unions are costing our state governments billions of dollars.
When all it focuses on is Melbourne, Waleed, you f***ing knob. Which, first off, gee, couldn't be that the reason Melbourne has some of the highest labour costs per square metre is due to the fact that they have some of the highest skyscrapers in the world, and therefore you have a bunch of workers dangling 60 stories in the air with a 3-ton sheet of glass? No, that's piss-easy work, says man who earns his bread falling asleep on the pace button. You've got to admire the confidence the project has in declaring.
But it's not due to a skill shortage, the resources boom, or an explosion in construction.
When it is. You can't walk down Melbourne CBD without being spanked by a crane, but also, if you actually did the story on what you said the story was on, which was the whole nation, you would have looked at the whole nation. BIS Shrapnel, now BIS Oxford International, did a report just 6 months before about construction costs in this country. They found that public infrastructure costs were down nationally by as much as 50% post the mining boom, which means what actually increases the price of these projects is supply and demand. Remember, the IPA is the Liberal Party's go-to think tank. Isn't that reassuring to know that that's our government's brain? As I already outlined, I'm aware that it's pathetic that this aired in 2016 and then 4 years later. What? The reason I wanted to make this was to remind you to keep it your parents. Tell them to stop watching this garbage because this is soft propaganda designed to make them think, I have this sudden urge to vote Liberal and I have no idea why. It's scary, but these think tanks are the head of the snake. Corporations hire them to come up with unimaginably dumb conclusions that favour those corporations, and then they spread that misinformation on the ABC and commercial news in between Tommy Little looking visibly scared that he's on camera. Then it cuts to Peter Hellier saying, "That's it, I'm becoming a construction worker." More project up next. And then it becomes public consensus. So like this video so we can send Gideon our own bullshit report and say to him, hey, this many people think you're a bag of shit. And the cover picture will be me doing this. Twice, just to fatten it out. Like the video.
Please share and comment below. Comment.